The desert stretched endlessly under the burning sun, its golden dunes rippling like liquid fire. But as night fell, it became a place of shadows and whispers, a land that belonged to predators both human and otherwise. Lila Monroe had always been fearless, or at least she had told herself so. Alone in the wilderness, she rode a horse across the dry plains, the wind whipping her dark hair across her face, the creaking leather of her saddle echoing with each step. She thought she was alone, as she always was, until the stillness broke. It wasn't a sound she could place, but a feeling, a prickling at the back of her neck, like icy fingers brushing against her spine. At first, she tried to ignore it, blaming the desert for her overactive imagination, but the feeling persisted, growing heavier with each passing mile. Shadows seemed to flicker at the edge of her vision, disappearing the moment she turned her head. Her horse shied suddenly, ears flattening, nostrils flaring, and Lila realized it wasn't just the wind. It was something else. Something out there, watching her. Panic rose in her chest, but training and sheer grit kept her grounded. She urged her horse forward, her eyes fixed on the old abandoned mining cabin she'd seen from a distance, hoping for shelter. As the sun sank, leaving a bruised purple sky, the first stars pricked the horizon. The moment she reached the cabin, the sensation intensified. The shadows were closer now, moving unnaturally, whispering in the language of silence. Lila dismounted, her boots crunching on the gravel, her revolver already in hand, heart hammering against her ribs. The door groaned as she pushed it open. The cabin seemed empty, yet the air thrummed with anticipation, as if the walls themselves were aware of her presence. She lit a small lantern, the flame casting long, dancing shadows across broken furniture and dust-laden floors. The creak of the floorboards beneath her boots seemed deafening. She tried to calm her breathing, telling herself she was alone. But then she saw a fleeting movement in the corner of her eye, impossible to define, like a shadow peeling itself from the wall. Her skin prickled, goosebumps rising as the hair on her arm stood rigid. Lila raised her revolver, scanning the room, but the figure vanished before she could aim. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it a low, unearthly moan that sounded almost human, but not quite. She gripped the gun tighter. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she knew running into the open desert meant certain death. She had to survive, to outsmart whatever was hunting her. Hours passed, or maybe it was just minutes. Time seemed warped in that cabin. Every creak, every whisper, every fleeting shadow pushed her closer to the edge of terror. Then, just as her resolve began to waver, the figure appeared in the doorway. It was tall, impossibly thin, its eyes glinting with an unnatural light. She fired, the revolver's roar echoing through the cabin. The figure dissolved into smoke, only to reappear closer, unharmed. It was as if her bullets had no effect, her courage tested in a way she had never imagined. The room trembled, as if the desert itself acknowledged her struggle. Lila ducked behind a broken table, whispering prayers she hadn't uttered in years, calculating her next move. Every fiber of her being screamed that this was no ordinary predator. It was something ancient, patient, and intelligent. She remembered the old tales of spirits that haunted the frontier, creatures that watched the unwary, feeding on their fear and despair. The figure stepped closer, each movement deliberate, predatory. Lila realized this was a test, a game where only the cleverest would survive. Heart pounding, she grabbed a lantern, swung it toward the creature, and for a brief second, its form shimmered, revealing not a face, but a void where features should have been. The air crackled, and the creature hissed, a sound like metal scraping bone, echoing through the cabin. Lila's mind raced. She had one chance. She bolted toward the back door, swinging the lantern in a wide arc, striking the creature with fire, and ran into the night. The desert air hit her like ice, the stars glaring down as she sprinted across the sand, revolver ready, senses sharp. Behind her, the moan rose again, following her, relentless, growing fainter with every step she dared to take. Lila didn't stop until the first light of dawn painted the horizon in shades of gold and pink. She collapsed atop a dune, gasping, heart pounding, scanning the barren landscape. There was nothing. No movement, no whispers, but she knew, deep down, that the desert had claimed her as a witness. not a victim. And that somewhere out there, in the shadows between the stars and the sand, something had been watching her all along and would be watching again. She rose, determined. Alone or not, she had survived the night, and the frontier, as cruel as it was, had only made her stronger. And somewhere, deep in the desert, a pair of eyes glimmered, patient, waiting for the next nightfall. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows.